Hi everyone, welcome to Life Skills with Louie. I'm Louie. Today we're talking about attachment. If you haven't watched the introduction to the interpersonal effectiveness skills, I would recommend you do so. It'll help this to be put in context. Also, there's an introduction to the learning to love skills, which will help you understand all these skills. And there's an introduction to the entire video series, which will help you see how everything fits together. So I encourage you to take a look at all those intros, but now to dive into attachment. So this was added from dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. This isn't in the teachings of DBT, though I'm sure every practitioner practices it. I thought it was important to make it explicit because it's a river that runs through and below all of interpersonal interactions. And what I've created here is a little intro to attachment. You'll need to study more and learn more, and you can talk to your therapist to understand more about how this affects you. The other caveat I'll say is that I'm not an expert on attachment, and this little diagram I created is my own diagram. This is not peer-reviewed or correct, but it may be helpful. So I'm going to start with, there are two other videos in this series on attachment that talk about the practice of availability and accountability. I speak about these with some specifics of what I mean by them, but they have to do with being available to someone else and accountable to them, responding to them in a responsible way. And then I put this spectrum of self and other. Focus on self, focus on other, or a middle path where you focus on both. This diagram is important to help understand that there has been research that's categorized different styles of attachment: secure attachment, avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, and disorganized attachment. There may be some further parsing out. For our purposes, this is good enough. So, to use these processes of being available and accountable to someone else or yourself, if you're very available and accountable to other people, but not to yourself, you may have some anxious attachment. Just to say, you're anxiously focused on the other, really trying to keep the relationship, and not focused on yourself, which can lead to some self-dysregulation. On the other hand, if you have a lot of availability and accountability for yourself, but not so much for others, push others aside a bit, you may be somewhat avoidantly attached. And so this may make relationships with others difficult. It may make them somewhat dysregulated emotionally, while you feel less dysregulated overall. Well, that's not a hard and fast rule for either of these. If you have the ability to be available and accountable to both yourself and others, you may be securely attached. Have this ability to feel a sense of security in relationship and with yourself. And if you have trouble being available and accountable to yourself and to others, you may be more disorganized in your attachment. Some key things here. I talk more in subsequent videos about availability and accountability, what I mean by them. This is not comprehensive, but it is a helpful starting point, how you might practice this. The other key thing is that this is not set in stone. We used to think this, that people thought that once you had a certain attachment style, that's the way it was forever, but that is not the case. Attachment changes moment to moment and in different contexts. I might be securely attached to one person, anxiously attached to another. I might go through a securely attached period of time and then a more anxiously or avoidantly attached period of time. It's shiftable, which is a key thing because it's now has been shown that if you're more securely attached, you can pull people into secure attachment that are anxiously or avoidantly attached, or disorganized attachment. On the other hand, you can be pulled, if you're in a secure attachment, into avoidant if someone's particularly anxious. You can be pulled into anxious if someone's particularly avoidant. These things tend to create their polar opposites. So this is such a powerful dance to work on. And I would encourage, if you think there's anything to this, talk to your therapist about attachment and begin to read and understand so you can work on it. And lastly, just to say again, there is a video about availability and a video about accountability to talk more about these, to understand them more fully. And I really hope this helps you to start to open your eyes to this reality of attachment and how it runs through everything and how powerful it is to learn more about how to be securely attached. Thank you.